Let's get back to our Lincoln 460 build. Before I put the intake on, I've got to pull these studs out of the other heads. So not sure how well that's going to go. We may have to put some heat on them, but these 4 are studs, so we'll do that. Got some diesel creep going as I'm working, and got the intake ready to go. I'm going to do a final wipe down with brake cleaner on the intake, and I'm going to probably do it on the gas. I might do it on the gasket. I'm going to put just some right stuff around the coolant passages, making sure not to block off this, so it'll be a thin little bead of silicone. That's what I was saying. I'll probably put it on the gasket, put a thin little bead right there. And what that does, this thing right here, is if you end up, this gasket fails, this leaks to the outside of the engine. It's pretty neat little design. We've got our little plugs in here. These are just from, I made these last time I put this intake on. This is to plug the exhaust crossover. These are aluminum. They're decently thick. It came from an aluminum license plate. I think it was, what state was that the plate was from? Idaho, I think. So I just cut those out last time I did this and formed them. And then this is just that, well, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a heat tape, whatever. I just needed something that just kind of sticks them in place. And I'm not a fan of red RTV, but I coat both sides of this thing, and then the sealing surface, just kind of give it a good little coat, and just to help make sure this thing stays in place. It's small or it's large enough that it would never fall into the intake. And the same on the head. The port on the head is smaller than the plug, so it's not going to ever fall anywhere, but just to be safe. And because, I mean, it's thinner than the gasket thickness, but this gasket will compress, so I just want to make sure, you know, we put some silicone on here just in case that keeps the gasket from clamping, I guess, as hard as it should, because it's got that thickness of that. You know, whatever. I tend to overthink stuff like this, so, you know, just do whatever you think. But I guarantee you, we're never burning through this thing. It is, I mean, it's thin. Like I said, it's thin enough that it's not going to cause an issue, but it's thick enough that it's not going to burn through, if that makes sense. A lot of people just fill the ports and the intake up with this stuff, and that's probably effective. But, yeah, we're doing that. You know, the small block, small block Chevys a lot of times come with a block off plate with the gasket, a little thin thing. Those I've seen burn through before. Anyway, and you might be asking, well, why are we running this? I kind of covered it last time when I made these and put the intake on, that I'm in Texas and we have zero problems with, and I'm in like southeast Texas. It is hot here, rarely below freezing. We do not have issues with intake manifolds being too cold or carburetors being too cold. That's not an issue here. So we have an issue with heat soak and boiling fuel, you know, with the ethanol here. I can't get ethanol free. I'm in a county that does not allow ethanol free gasoline, and any county that touches my county, I'm in the Houston area, Harris County. Harris County is, I guess, considered a polluting state or a polluting county or whatever. And so Harris County and any county that touches Harris County is not allowed to sell ethanol free gas. That's my understanding. And Harris County is a massive county. It's like I think it's the largest county in the United States. Land mass size. California, I don't remember which county, probably Los Angeles, I don't know, whatever county in California takes the number one for population. And I think Harris County is number one for land mass size. It is just a massive county, so I would have to drive forever to get ethanol-free gas. Anyway, so I'm stuck running it. So I've already test fit the intake on there. I like to do that just to see what kind of gap I've got. Well, make sure everything lines up, make sure my bolt holes look like they're gonna line up, because we did have this block decked, and the heads look like they've been machined, you know, surfaced. So we just wanna make sure we've got a good surface or a good fit everywhere, you know, before we start putting some RTV on this thing. I went ahead and wiped down everything, and so we're ready to go. I'm gonna, around the intake ports, I'm gonna put some Permatex number 3 on the heads and the intake manifold, or I may just put it on the gaskets, we'll see. And then, like I said, you can see these coolant ports, you know, they're rough, but some right stuff will take care of that, you know, on all 4. And we're gonna ditch, I've got these gaskets, but we're gonna ditch those, we're not running those. And when I did the fitment, I checked to see how much gap, and I've got slightly under that. I just found something that would just kind of barely fit in and kind of raise the intake as it did. That thing's magnetic. Huh. Got a magnetic wrench. Anyway, so we're gonna do a little bead along here, a bead along the back. Like I said, I like to get something so I know how thick that bead needs to be before I set it in. And we will set it all, you know, put the right stuff in, all that kind of stuff, set the intake on, let it sit for a minute, and then torque it down. Let me go get all this stuff ready. Y'all see it on time lapse, and we'll get this thing knocked out. Oh, and just make sure to clean in here real good, these corners, and put some silicone in there for sure. I mean, we're doing this whole area, but make sure to get those little seams right there. You got a little bit of silicone in there. I need to get a pick and get that out. Not really hurting anything, but we'll get it out. One thing I did forget to mention that I had forgotten, I had to take the oil pump back off and put it back on. Don't forget your oil pump drive. So I did that. I remembered that before I had the pan on. So just make sure you did that. I thought, to be honest, I thought I could run it down from this side, and I wasn't worried about it. It's not that I forgot it. I thought I could run it down from here. I was like, you know, I better check that. And it's got a little, it's like a washer, but it's a tight fit with little prongs that grip. And that's on that oil pump drive. Probably can't. Oh, it's on the bottom side. So there's that little boss right there in the block that the oil pump drive runs in. That little thing is on the bottom side of it, and that keeps basically that oil pump drive pinned between the oil pump and the that boss on the block, basically. So if you rotated the engine over upside down without the distributor in, that oil pump drive is not going to slide out, basically. So yeah, so put that oil pump drive in before you put the oil pump on. Makes sense. the intake bolts and nuts. I went through a couple of them. If you've watched this video, you saw how this whole top of the engine, when I rescued this car, was just a rat nest. So quite a few of the bolts, the heads on them were kind of pitted, and some of the nuts. And so lucky for me, I've got a 460 now, an extra 460, and that Tupperware is full of all the stuff that's stripped off of that. So I dug through there and found a couple intake manifold bolts and nuts and swapped those out for better looking ones, I guess. I didn't go, crazy with painting all the bolts or anything like that. I just cleaned them up, threw them in the ultrasonic cleaner, and if that didn't get it good enough, I hit it on the wire wheel on my bench grinder. Okay, so here we go. I'm not really sure I like where I've got the distributor, but we can change that later. I will say I marked the cap when I originally, did the ignition on this car, and that was before I had removed the distributor. And number 1 on the distributor is back here. Put a 1 right there, and I put a little mark there, but it's actually that black line right there is where it lines up on the cap. Like I said, I had marked the cap, and that is number 1. So I left it right here in the middle. That leaves us plenty of room to advance and retard the distributor. And I did go ahead and lock it down. What I did is, if you see our little pickup right there, we've got this at number 1 with the pickup at number 1. I went ahead and set the engine to 10 degrees before top dead center. The timing spec on this is 14. I really don't know. I need to look up the specs for Dove heads timing, because it may be different than 14. But I went ahead and just set at 10. So that gives us some wiggle room. I don't know if the little igniter on here fires right when it's lined up, or right after. I really don't know. It may be right after that it actually triggers. So I set it right on. That gives us some wiggle room, a little bit before, a little bit after. We might be at 5, we might be at 15, but we should be somewhere in the realm, 10 degrees, give or take 5, either way is my thought. We've got the distributor stabbed in, we've got it ballparked, timing should be correctish. The other thing we can do is, as we're cranking over full oil pressure with the plugs out, we can put a timing light on this thing and double check the timing. So I think I'll do that, because I am going to start this thing with the timing light, because my timing light has a tack on it. So as we break in the cam, I'll use the timing light for our RPMs, so we can break this thing in at the correct RPM and all that kind of stuff. I think right now, I went ahead, we've got the engine sealed up. I got to put the oil plug back in it. The paint's drying on that, so as soon as that's dry, I'll put the oil plug back in it. But we've got the drain plug, got the breather on it, and went ahead and stuck the PCV on it. Valve covers are torqued down. I got this little 1/4-inch torque wrench I love. This is my grandfather's. It's a Proto, and it doesn't ratchet or anything, but it's great for low torque applications, and that's what we used for that. Pretty much everything else, all this little stuff, I've been using this 3/8 that I've had for a long time. I think this is a Harbor Freight. I can't remember. I've had it a long time. But yeah, it works pretty good for low stuff, but getting down into the 5 and 6 inch pounds, that's on the lowest of this, and so I think it's probably not the most accurate that low. And these are torqued between 5 and 6, so I'll put it at 70 inch pounds. That gets us right in that range, close to 6 foot-pounds. So anyway, yeah, that's where we are. Pretty much ready to get this. It's ready to go. I mean, there's really nothing else we have to do here, other than there might be a few accessories we'll throw on it before we put it in. So we are finally done with the assembly of the 460 for the Lincoln. Next thing we've got to do, we're gonna do the transmission. We've got to put a shift kit in it and just kind of check things over. We're not gonna rebuild it or anything, but we will kind of just look. We're gonna reseal the front pump because I'm pretty sure that's where it was leaking. We'll put a torque converter seal as well. So we've got all that coming up, but engine wise, we're done. Once we get the transmission done, we'll mate the two together and get them back in the Lincoln. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.